G'day trendsetters, I'm John with Gravel Cyclist and I'm coming to you today with a video concerning a piece of technology from a bygone era, long before the slew of gravel bikes, before privateers and before suspension that we're seeing proliferate many gravel bikes in the marketplace today. Right next to me, I have two examples, new in the box no less. This is the Rockshox Roubaix SL fork. It was designed to mitigate the nasty cobbles of that famous French race, Paris Roubaix. Now you might be wondering, why is there an Eddie Merckx Motorola Team Edition road bicycle sitting to my immediate right? Well, this bicycle is from the same period of time that these forks were proliferating Paris Roubaix. They were often fitted to bicycles of this nature. These forks were not complete rubbish. They were ridden to victory in 3 consecutive editions of Paris Roubaix from 1992 to 1994 inclusive. The first 2 years was by the same gentleman, a French rider, Mr. Gilbert Duclos-Lasalle. Hopefully I haven't butchered the name of the Team Z, namely the legendary Team Z of Greg LeMond fame. And in the final iteration, the toughest edition of Paris-Roubaix in my mind, the 1994 edition, won by Andre Chamil, and that race earns the moniker epic, nasty conditions, disgusting, broken bikes, all sorts of crazy stuff going on, and the commentator, Mr. David Duffield of Eurosport at the time, lost his voice during the broadcast. I remember it like yesterday, so that has the definitions of epic written all over it. Of interest, 1994 was one of the final years that we saw this fork adorning any pro bike at Paris-Roubaix. The next 5 of 6 years were won by riders aboard Colnago bikes. I do know for a fact that Mr. Ernesto Colnago had no desire to see this fork adorning one of his beautiful bicycles. So since that time, this sort of technology has gone by the wayside with road cycling, etc. However, circa 2021-22, we're seeing very similar items appear, namely in the form of the Rockshox XPLR fork, and I'll drag a bike into the scene right now. And here we have a modern day gravel bike, namely the Canyon Grizzle, fitted out with a Rockshox Rudy XPLR fork. What's old is new again, potentially. Of interest, these forks, they do share some similarities, not in terms of the internals, but in terms of the travel. This fork had 30 millimeters of travel. This fork also has 30 millimeters of travel. There's also a 40 millimeter version fork of this available. And if you're wondering, hey, what's that bike ride like? Well, I conducted a very comprehensive review of this bike, and you can check it out linked in the description below. And also the SRAM Export Access drivetrain, that review is also linked in the description below. Here's some more techie information about these forks. They were basically a development of the Mag 21 fork by Rockshox, which was a mountain bike fork. And remember, this is from a time when the mountain bikes were 26-inch wheels, cantilever brakes, etc. Now this part of the fork, the legs, is constructed from magnesium, and there is titanium bolts in the interest of saving weight there as well, and on the front. Now, to mount a brake onto this fork, you need to use a rear caliper brake. Notice how thick that brace piece is. So 2 rear brakes on a road bike, very interesting. Now, each of the legs of this fork has an air oil spring with a damper in each leg. Now, the dampening can be adjusted on this fork independently. There are 6 dampening positions, from open all the way, active suspension, to fully locked. And being an air oil fork, I can adjust it with the supplied Rockshox shock pump. This is the legitimate item that came with this fork. So you'd simply stick your pump in right there and adjust your pressure with the plunger. The other detail, I believe every single one of these forks was an inch steerer. Now, there were threaded versions like this one, and in the example in the box right there, it is threadless. But if you're fortunate to find one of these with a long enough steerer tube, this is about 175 millimeter steerer tube. You could probably cut one a little bit short and use it on a threadless steerer bike. Now, I will say I have no plans to use these forks anytime soon. This one I think has been mounted, but it's not actually seen any use. It's pretty much new old stock and in pretty perfect condition. Now, these forks were far from perfect. You have to remember, this is from early 1990s suspension technology. Things have vastly improved since that time, so you can't really compare these forks side by side. So there you go, a little bit of cycling history from a bygone era, the Rockshox Roubaix SL fork. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel for interesting content such as this. No bull gravel bike reviews, ride experience videos, other product reviews, and general madness, as all of it is released to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.